Hello, and welcome to Lesson 25 of Speedpuzzling 101 Tips and Tricks. Quick speed puzzling lessons in usually under 10 minutes. Today's lesson is on the challenges of putting a puzzle together when you don't have the image to look at. This is part 2 of the topic. Make sure to check out part 1, where I looked at the initial things to consider while you're doing the flip and trying to decide on the orientation. As a disclaimer, there is no single correct way to put a puzzle together. My advice may work for some, and it may not work for others. I would suggest trying as many different approaches as you can and find what works best for you. Today's video is on some strategies and some challenges when it comes to putting it together when you don't have the box image to look at. This does carry on, as I mentioned, from part 1. I've used this approach quite a few times over the past 6 weeks, so I'm going to be using some of the examples from those puzzles in this video. I will continue practicing this approach over the next 6 weeks or so as I prepare for the Speed Puzzle World Series taking place in May of 2026. So as I continue to practice this over the next few weeks, if you have any questions or suggestions, particular suggestions that you would like to mention, please leave a comment below. As I go through some of the examples, you will see some pretty good times and you're going to see some very not good times, especially in today's examples. There's takeaways from each scenario. There's always something to learn, so hopefully there's something in here that will benefit whoever is watching this video. In this first example, I'm going to build on the previous video about orientation, but instead, what do you do if there is no way of knowing what the orientation is? This puzzle, called Secret Sanctuary by Pomegranate Puzzles, has a pretty consistent green border with no indicating factors as to the direction of the puzzle. In addition, when flipping the pieces, there's no hints there either. To save space with the large pieces and the fact the border is useless, they are all placed into a pile off to the side. And as there is no obvious orientation, it is all about building the small projects as quickly as possible. Make sure to pay attention to any detail that allows you to join these small projects together. If there's a large project, that is even better, but as you'll notice in this example, the large project was not immediately obvious. Even as the puzzle comes together, you'll again notice that the orientation is tough to determine. But even once I know that it is a portrait style, it makes more sense for me to continue working in landscape. As I don't have a box image to reference, wasting time trying to move the puzzle and the loose pieces is essentially pointless. Save time wherever you can. This is also good practice for a pairs or team scenario when you're not working right side up. The second example, there is no way again to know the orientation from the start. There were hints with windows and there were some flowers, but nothing that was part of the border that would help. So again, the border was left to the side. This puzzle did not have many obvious small projects, however the white pieces stood out, so I got them done first and saw that they were part of the border. But what was not totally clear is what side of the border they belonged to. So to make it easier on myself, I kept that border in the same direction I built it, meaning keeping it at the top of the puzzle. Space is limited with large puzzles, so moving everything around is not the best option, especially in this case where pieces aren't going to hold together well. You're just going to waste time. It is also worth noting that the border in this case was a random cut, making it even tougher to assemble at the start. Then it was about putting the flower patterns together with obvious colors, but still a challenge. This is when the orientation became a bit clearer and the picture itself. There were going to be a lot of windows looking outside, and I could start working on the border a little bit more, and I did find out that I built the puzzle upside down. At the time, I didn't think much of it. I was just going to keep building upside down. I've done puzzles like that before, so I left it. Because of all the frames and sections, this is much more challenging than I thought. I knew the time was going to be bad, and I learned more about my mindset than puzzling. I felt like I gave up as soon as I passed the 1 hour mark. I knew pretty early on that cats were going to be in the picture and fur is not my strength at all, but I didn't realize upside down fur was even tougher. I should have flipped the puzzle around closer to the end when there weren't many pieces left and I had the space. You may also see that some of the flowers are in the wrong direction. They're hanging upside down in the image, so that threw me off a bit as well. So there were a couple of takeaways from this. In the third example, orientation was irrelevant. During the flip, it was obvious that this puzzle was just going to be a collection of donuts in rows and columns. The border was possible, but thanks to the background being in 3 clear, different colored sections. If the border was one solid color, I've learned this in the past to leave it with puzzles like this. So backgrounds can be helpful in decision making when it comes to border building early on whether to do it or not. From there, it was purely about pulling out pieces section by section, or in this case, donut by donut. There was some minimal overlap between some of the donuts in terms of texture or color, so they were pulled together. In a large pile of 500 pieces, the difference might not be clear, but when the similar sections are beside each other, the difference between two sections is quite obvious. So pull those sections together and obviously arrange them separately when you can tell the difference. One thing I would change with my approach to this is connecting the full border together. I realized as I was working that I didn't know where each donut was going to go inside of the border, and space management was becoming an issue quickly. But that background gave me the general vicinity of where those pieces were going to go. I would have kept the three sections apart and moved the completed donuts to their sections. Once it was obvious that one would connect to the other, I would attach, something for me to keep in mind in the future. I did try to use the board to build off of it and work my way inward. That helped, but again, sometimes space was becoming an issue. Looking back on the video, it is frustrating that I had so much empty space on the table that I did not utilize, and the video is a time lapse, so it might not be obvious, but there are a number of times I am turning donuts around inside the puzzle to see if they can fit and save space, just wasting time. Sometimes they would fall apart. Again, another good takeaway for me in the future. And in the final example for this video, I just want to show a complete breakdown that I had, and it can happen at any time. The purpose for this mini-series on not using an image to put a puzzle together is to prepare, as I mentioned, for the Speed Puzzle World Series in May 2026, where one of the rounds is to finish a puzzle under the same circumstances and within a 75-minute time limit. I started with the words to try to see if that would help with the puzzle theme, and it did. I quickly figured out that it was Guardians of the Galaxy themed, which was also a bit disappointing as it's not one of my preferred series from the MCU universe for a variety of reasons. But also disappointing because I knew I was not as familiar with the characters and the designs that I was going to need to know. The words took ages, as did the border. When I saw that I had finished very little by the 30-minute mark, I was not happy, and also realized the border was mostly pointless. It gave away no significant information other than the orientation, but that wasn't really needed as the interior of the puzzle was all words and characters, which are going to go in one specific orientation anyways. I soon realized they were wearing the same uniform, which I don't really remember from the movies, and that was going to make things even more challenging. At the 1 hour mark, maybe 2/3 of the puzzle was done and the toughest bits were still left. I waited far too long to do a shape sort, especially as the pieces had no distinct differences between them. So again, this was a good reminder for me to do that earlier in the future. I probably should have done it at the 1 hour mark. I included this one because I was way past the 75-minute mark, and I was extremely frustrated with the puzzle, even going back and looking at it now. Do I think a puzzle like this will show up at the competition? Highly unlikely, but there are still some key takeaways for me here. Mainly mindset and organization, even when the image theme is obvious. So that is it for part 2 of puzzling with no box or image to look at. Key takeaways here is really trying to stay focused on organization and adapting to new information as it's revealed. Some key takeaways for me in particular are I didn't rotate the puzzle when I should have, especially when I had space. Not doing it when everything is cluttered was a smart choice, but closer to the end, when I can put the image or puzzle in the right direction, I should have done that. I wasted time by shape sorting far too late in one of the puzzles, so again, something to remind myself, it's almost never really too early to shape sort if you're just down to one style of piece left. I was only going to do 2 parts in this little mini series, but as I mentioned, I do have more unboxed puzzles that have been generously given to me to practice, so there will likely be a part 3 for this series. Let me know what you may want covered in the 3rd part. One thing that will definitely be covered are the benefits I've gained when I'm regularly puzzling. When I do have the image available to me, there are strategies that I have been getting better at when I've not had the image to consult. That is it for this video. Let me know in the comments how you try to stay organized when you don't have the image to look at. Make sure to click subscribe so you stay up to date with everything that's happening on this channel. More Speed Puzzling 101 lessons, as well as all the different types of videos and series that are running on this channel on a regular basis. And lastly, at the time of this recording, we are just under 50 days until the Speed Puzzle World Series. So these lessons will continue to focus a little bit more on that going forward. Gibson's practice is coming up in the next couple of lessons, so if you're interested in circle puzzles or panoramic puzzles, make sure to stay tuned on this channel. But that is it for today. Class dismissed, and until next time, as always, happy puzzling. Bye.